Hi guys. Welcome to those Muckrakers. I'm Peter. That's Empty Chair, and this is Lady on a Plane. And today we'll be talking about the news.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen out there in Radioland. This is those Muckrakers coming to you again once again through the power of the internet. I'm Pat.
I'm Pete.
I'm Bobby.
And this is episode 122. And in today's episode, tell them what we'll be talking about, Pete.
Florida, and a lady airplane named
Florida
Wally,
man.
and some COVID stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and some Chinese stuff, and some how to raise your kids or how to not raise your kids. It's a lot of stuff going on.
Isn't it fantastic that Trump just kept saying the China virus and suddenly like violent attacks against Chinese people in America shot up by like 200%?
I think it's more bothersome that just an idiot can say some stuff and people are less like, well, you're right. I should attack people of a different ethnicity.
It's insane to me that he's not being held more to account for that.
I think it's less, you're right, I should attack people of a different ethnicity, and more, I've always hated those people. Here's my chance to feel justified. Like, yeah.
It's basically it. There's what was it? One person said, all the stuff that your racist uncle mutters around Thanksgiving. Well, our country, as it turns out, is about 45% racist uncles. So we're going to have to learn to deal with them.
It's 45% Uncle Jerry.
And it's difficult to explain to people that, like, whenever they're like, well, you just hate America. I'm like, yeah, because this country has we've got load bearing racism just built right in. Like, it's really difficult. And then
if you pull it out, the core of what is America just collapses.
Yeah. It's basically, it's structural racism. Stop calling it systemic racism. Start calling it structural racism, because it is load bearing.
The reason I feel like I stay and I keep trying to change stuff is because I think you find these points in history where at least we have these super lofty ideals that we don't live up to, but at least some of us are fucking trying. So all those people are like, you don't like it, get out. I'm like,
you don't like America and you can get out.
I'm gonna try to change it. Because it just
no. That's what you just need to start telling people who complain about Biden, especially conservatives. If you don't like it, get out.
Argentina loves people like you.
Exactly.
Joe Biden is America, and if you don't like America, and you can get out.
Yeah, I hear Argentina really likes people who are just asking questions and playing devil's advocate and doesn't hate the Jews.
Yeah.
So, Wally, you said you had some wonderful COVID news.
I do. So, would you like to hear the bad news first or the bad news?
Let's hit the bad news.
So COVID's on the rise in all 50 states again, and we're already starting to talk about locking the country back down once more to try and stem the curve, right? So this is actually the fourth wave at this point. Infection rates are up 70% over the last 2 weeks.
Somebody posted the other day, they were like, there won't be a lockdown. We'll just normalize people dying. And I'm like, no, because it kills too many of the poor people you need to make the shit that makes rich people happy. You can't normalize that. If there's nobody to fucking work your lowest tier, then it fucks up the upper tier. Like all those people are like, I can't believe nobody's working in McDonald's.
That's because they're dead, Jim.
Yeah, they're dead,
Dave. Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead.
All the essential workers are dead. Yeah.
No, but some of these people, I swear to God, we could be going through the zombie apocalypse and they would be sitting in the drive-through, like full blown. The Walking Dead is in season 3. Zombie apocalypse.
Now
These people don't want to.
I'm not pro getting eaten by zombies, but I just say it should be every American's God-given right to get eaten by a zombie if they want. I'm not going to tell them to not go out and get eaten by a zombie. It's their personal choice. Nanny State, Joe Biden ain't going to be going door to door boarding me against the zombies. He wants to board up my windows and door. He can get right out of my property.
There was somebody on Twitter, I forget who it was, and they said that every viral outbreak and zombie movie from here on out is going to feel very unrealistic if there aren't hordes of people running towards the infected saying it's fake news and then getting infected.
Like, fake news, there ain't no zombies.
Real sad news out of Louisiana, especially out of a town that I hold dear, Lafayette, Louisiana. a nurse at Lafayette General who became an Instagram star locally for saying, like, the death rate's not that bad. You should just be careful. Don't worry about, we shouldn't be forced to wear masks and social distance and everything should be open. We should just let this run its course. This past week she died of COVID.
Speaking
For
of
also
people that need to
spreading
die
vaccine misinformation and possibly causing a lot more infections than just her own.
Have you guys had COVID?
Me?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you asymptomatic or did it like?
I was completely asymptomatic. My roommate, not so lucky. My roommate, I was very close to bringing him to the hospital. Like there were 3 days there where he could not get out of bed.
Damn.
Yeah. No, me and your roommate had it about the same. I could move around a little bit, but like it actually was difficult to wear a mask. Just that little bit of like restriction on my breathing made it. I mean, I still wore a mask. I'm not an asshole, but I was like, oh, this is hard. I had the oxygen monitor and I was told by my doctor if it went below a certain point, go to the hospital. So it would drop really low and I'd be like, and I would just watch the oxygen thing just slowly climb back up to like, you're not going to die. And I'm like, well, this is why I'm not going to the hospital, because it'll climb back up and they'll send me home. And then I'll get home.
That's one of my worst fears, is that I'll finally go see a doctor about something and I'll get better on the trip over to the hospital.
Well, that's
I'll
what
be like,
so my oxygen didn't stay down.
The way I was raised is you don't cause a fuss and you don't like bother people unnecessarily. So I feel really bad if I go there and they're like, you're fine. Like that's the worst news I can hear. It's like, sorry for disturbing you.
The other thing was there was not much the hospital could do for you except, put you on a breathing machine. And I didn't
basically give you antibiotics so you don't get, another, try to prevent pneumonia, basically.
Yeah. And I didn't want to, I did the idea of sitting in a hospital, like emergency room, just like for like 4 hours. I was like, I think I'd rather die in bed. It was just fucking awful. So anybody that's like, it's fake news, it's not that bad, I go, oh, I just want to find them and just punch them in the fucking solar plexus a whole lot so they can't breathe and be like, it's like that but for weeks.
So now Joe Biden is trying to send people like as part of a community outreach program. He's trying to get people to go door to door to let people know that the vaccine exists, to try and stem the tide to save lives. And Fox News is losing their shit about this. They're saying, oh, this is it. The Nazi uprising is coming in the form of people goose stepping right up to your front door. A guy in a mask is going to show up and tell you how to live your life. And
because the Nazis were all like, you know what we need? We need to vaccinate everyone.
We need to vaccinate the Jews.
That's what Blitzkrieg meant. Blitzkrieg was like it was a lightning health thing where they just rolled into other countries and were like, we're going to fix your health system.
The Jews and give them the polio virus.
The
polio vaccine.
And I love trying to explain to people, they're like, well, the Nazis socialized medicine. I'm like, no, actually, the Kaiser socialized medicine in like the 1890s, and then the Nazis really didn't touch how the medicine gets to people. They just restricted anyone from getting medicine if they weren't full-blooded Aryan. Like that was the whole thing.
Just to troll, back when I was a smoker, I used to point out that the Nazis started the first anti-smoking campaign. So I'd be like, I ain't no fucking Nazi. Take a deep breath.
Yeah, we had a lot of stupid things we said about smoking, and if I could go back in time, I would slap myself. Every earlier version of myself,
just like smack the cigarette right out of your mouth. It's like,
if you aren't embarrassed of who you were as a teenager or an early 20-something, were you
that means
really
you're
ever
still
a
that way now,
or an early 20-something?
Oh no, if you're not embarrassed, you're definitely a Republican. Because your way of acting and thinking has not changed since you were 15.
Yeah, speaking of the way Republicans act and them needing to be punished so they'll stop acting that way, and speaking of vaccines and people not getting them because of crazy people, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been banned from Twitter for 12 hours for spreading misinformation about the vaccine. She's trying to get people to not
handheld poppers to just go, we did it.
For 12 beautiful hours, we don't have to listen to her spread lies and misinformation. Because the surge of misinformation online, especially Facebook, actually, is what's killing people right now. Like it's literally killing people. And Fox News isn't helping matters at all. They're exacerbating the matter.
I am genuinely surprised. I am genuinely surprised that one of those 12 people who were responsible for like 60% of the misinformation online, I'm super surprised that Donald Trump is not one of them. Like,
Well,
like
let's
one
go
of
see
the
spam
12
from everything
identified
online
people
right now.
spreading misinformation about COVID and the vaccine.
well, you
Like,
know that the reason the ban works for Trump is he's too stupid to figure out how to start a second account, right?
Well, he tried. The day they banned him, he tried to take over a staffer's account, so they perma-banned that person as well.
That's what I mean.
I just thought that was fucking ridiculous because, like, your boss comes to you and goes, "Give me your phone right now," and you're
Give me
like,
your
"No,
phone.
I
I have an
want
important tweet to make.
I have an important tweet to make, and I'm going to make it on your account." I'd be like, "No, go fuck yourself!" Like, who the fuck agreed to that?
I'm just surprised it wasn't like he wasn't trying to make accounts like real Donald Trump 1, real Donald Trump 112.
I'm positive those accounts exist. They probably just sock puppet, you know.
Yeah.
I love that in South Park, Mr. Garrison's account was real President 4.
There's a thing they're doing right now in New York with with COVID that I hate because I'm too cheap to pay for Hulu without ads. And so there's this commercial, and it's like a New York Strong commercial, like we fought COVID and blah blah blah. And so they
with prison slave labor, yes, you fought COVID.
They're like, I really hate this whole like New York tough. We want to go. No, science developed a vaccine, and enough people fucking took it. New York didn't win shit. It wasn't like we were doing anything. People still refused to like lock down.
I believe what you mean is that Donald Trump invented the vaccine with his own 2 hands and then had Eric and Don Jr. distribute it.
Peter, you don't understand, okay? Like,
it's 90% bleach.
Baby boomers
10% sunlight.
Millennials because they say that we're the participation trophy generation, but they forgot that they're the ones who gave us the participation trophies. Governor Cuomo is just trying to give the whole state a participation trophy.
Well, and there's Gen X right there in the middle, just hating both sides.
Their target marketing for this commercial is people that are too stupid to go get a vaccine. And so they interview the dumbest people. They're like, "Why are you getting the vaccine?" And it's a bunch of like dead-eyed, just like, I'm getting the vaccine because my mama said I supposed to, or like most of my family died and I just don't want any more of them to die, so I'm getting the vaccine. And some guy's like, "Hey, I thought this was a place to get some pizza." Like, it's just like the dumbest, weirdest. And I go, oh, because people that are too stupid to get the vaccine will be like, "Oh, that guy's getting a vaccine, I'll get one too." Hey, like, and they keep it on repeat. And I'm like, oh my God, my fucking eyes are gonna melt out of my head. So annoying.
It's wonderful. People smart enough to get a vaccine have already long gotten it, so you can't appeal to them anymore with intelligence.
Right, because you want you gotta people on TV gotta be like, hey, he's just like me. This is a dumb fucking person that wouldn't get the vaccine.
Oh, that's why Donald Trump appeals to so many people.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking just a stereotypical guy with just big, thick cheddar cheese gold chains and like a white wife beater on, fucking like,
get the shot, get the shot, get the shot.
I fucking got the vaccine because I can't fucking hit my wife and she got COVID.
No, see, I think that the White House and the CDC missed a trick, because what they should have done is presented the vaccine specifically to the majority white suburbs of major cities. They should have distributed the vaccine in the form of a multi-level marketing scheme. Everyone would have gotten vaccinated. We would have vaccinated more than the population of the planet by now.
I'm just looking for a couple of vaccinated boss bitches who want to make some money in their free time.
Now remember, this is a timeshare vaccination, so as soon as you get it, you're gonna have to pass it on to the next.
You got to get 2 people.
You
got to get 2 people in your downstream to get vaxxed, and then they got to get 2 more people, and that's how you get the good vaccine.
In order to get double diamond vaccinated level and get the extra $15 bonus, you have to get 5 of your 5 downstream vaccinators to vaccinate 5 people.
I tell you what really makes me mad about COVID is that my sense of smell is still fucked up, because the other day I was hiking in the woods and I stopped.
My roommate definitely has long haul COVID symptoms. Like he's having short-term memory problems. Either that,
really?
Or just a really big pothead. So it's either way.
I got lucky because
are you experiencing any memory problems, Peter? Forgetting things, blackouts, deja vu?
No, I'm it's just my smell, because the other day when I was hiking,
just the matrix glitching. That has nothing to do with COVID. Yeah.
Have you been having any sort of long-term memory problems, Peter, like blackouts or deja vu?
I hate you. I stopped to get water out of a stream and I almost stepped in a dead fish because I couldn't fucking smell it.
My first thought was the stream didn't freeze, just wild and repeated the thing because the stream fucked up. That was my first thought.
He's a tricky one, man. There's a reason I hate him.
Oh my God.
Yes.
No, Peter, to answer a question that you had earlier, the I have found a so I live in Savannah, Georgia. It is in Chatham County. Our public transportation system is called Chatham Area Transit, or CAT. You gotta catch a cat. That's their slogan.
I really wish they would make it
Hey,
something
kids.
like rapid area. I just wish it would spell out rabies so they could be like,
Rapid area
catch,
transit.
you gotta
Well,
rabies, you
I
gotta
really
catch
think,
it.
okay, so like I'm from Louisiana, and the New Orleans, like it's the NTA or something like that, like NOTA, like NOTA, like New Orleans Transportation Authority. I think they missed a trick, because the Washington D.C.
The automotive
metro
interior doodad
metro
system.
is
Get AIDS.
called
Get AIDS today.
WMATA, the Washington Metro Area Transportation Authority, WMATA. And I think they missed a trick in New Orleans, because they could have called their system the New Orleans Metro Area Transit Authority, or NOMATA, because the slogan just writes itself. It's no matter where, no matter's there. Like that writes itself. They missed a trick.
Nice.
They really did. Like, yeah. Sorry. But I did find a very frequent bus in Savannah, Rapid Transit. It's our only rapid transit bus, and it's only rapid during peak service, which by rapid, I mean you get a bus about once every 15 minutes. It is the MLK Junior Boulevard / Westlake Apartments line, route number 25. It starts at the Transportation Center downtown, passes by West Broad Public Library, the Liberty City Community Center, a post office, as well as the probation office, the Southeast Corrections Facility, and the Chatham Area Detention Facility.
It's definitely not a bus you want to spend more than 15 minutes waiting for.
But that's why it's a rapid transit bus. That's why. Yeah, in fact, they have like little markers for like, what time will this be at like a major landmark on the route. And two of them are the probation office and the Chatham Area Detention Facility. Like
I guess you can't really show up late to those places, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going to go visit someone.
Oh, I was thinking of like the whole you've been sentenced, now you have to do that whole thing, which is crazy to me. You don't automatically get sent to jail necessarily after your sentencing. A lot of times I'd be like,
you can wait for your sentence at the jail. Like Tiger King did that. He waited for his sentence at the jail.
Why would you do that? I would be like, yeah, I'll show up.
Well, because he wanted to do this whole thing where he left in a Tiger limo. So if he wasn't sentenced, he was going to leave jail in a Tiger limo. And if he was just waiting in the lobby and then surrendered. Like you can totally do that to start your sentence as soon as possible.
But there are times when like they'll say, okay, you have to...
Captain Scottino of the Costa Concordia, the ship that capsized off the coast of Italy like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah. That guy also waited right outside of jail so he could start his sentence immediately.
But they'll say like, oh, you can show up next week, show up to whatever, and you'll be processed and you'll go to jail. And I go, that's an incredible amount of faith to put in somebody. They're like, hey, you're going to come to jail next week, right?
Well,
like,
if someone's not a flight risk and you've already got them on house arrest or like a geolocator arrest, like
right.
I mean, it gives them a week to like get their affairs in order.
Yeah, which is important. But I'm like, I'm not a flight risk until you're like, you're going to be in jail next week, right? And I'm like, yes, I will be in jail next. I will show up to jail on time. Yes.
And then the podcast pauses, and the prosecutor goes, "This is why Peter is a flight risk, and we need the jury to sentence him immediately."
That was one of our early plans with the podcast, to get arrested and then like have
we'd use the podcast as Exhibit B in our Guantanamo trial.
Basically, have the counsel play each episode full on to the court as part of the trial,
so that it becomes public record.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody has to watch all 122 episodes.
That'd be amazing. That's right. I forgot about that. We were saying that if we ever get our trial at Gitmo, when Trump discovers the podcast and throws us there, that
please
this
enter
would be
all
like
100
for why we're getting waterboarded.
I want all 122 episodes entered in as evidence.
That way they have to sit there and listen to them all.
Yeah, exhibits A through fucking 122.
Yep.
And if you won't do it, I will fire my counsel and act as my own attorney.
That's exhibit A as to why Peter is pleading insanity.
Insanity is really hard to get.
I do know that, and also it's not like a get out of jail free card, because then you have to go to
you go to the state
ward.
Yeah, you go to the state hospital for an indeterminate amount of time. Whereas if you go to jail, at least they'll give you a sentence. With state hospital, like We might keep you till you die. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the whole thing with trying to plead insanity, is that you don't want to go to the other place, especially if you're sane.
State hospital's not good.
Yeah, people always think that, oh, that's the lighter sentence. No, that's like Britney conservatorship level of hell. Like,
there's no definitive way out of it. It's like going to Gitmo. It's like, how long I'll be here? Forever, maybe. Who knows?
No, I love that. People pointing out all the fucking conservative and a lot of liberal politicians are going, Cuba has so many human rights violations. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, like the torture detention facility that we illegally have on Cuba's island. Yeah, like that one? Is that the kind of torture and human rights violations you're talking about?
Yeah, why can't we bring it to American soil? Oh, because it's illegal to
do that.
Well,
that turned into a NIMBY exercise. Like, no state wanted to house the federal terrorism penitentiary.
Why not? That seems like a lot of money.
Did you hear it came out early on that Trump wanted to send like the first COVID victims to Gitmo?
Jesus fucking Christ.
That's in one of the most recent books. He's like, don't we own an island out there? He thought that Gitmo was just like an island that we owned, that we could just send people to.
I remember this. He didn't want to repatriate a fucking cruise ship that was returning to California because it was going to bump up our COVID numbers.
Right. He didn't want that number to go up because he felt like it would hurt his re-election chances. And,
exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, he was right. Like Peter and I were saying before the pandemic broke out, there's a good chance we would be talking about President Trump's second term right now if COVID hadn't happened.
Yeah,
like,
if so many of his supporters,
many motherfuckers voted for that asshole at the last
so
election.
Many of his supporters had not died by his own hand.
Yeah. And there was a shitload of people coming out to try and boost his numbers. It's insane. Like, he got legitimately more votes than any other president in history. If Biden hadn't also broken that record and got like another 5 million above it, then we'd be so fucked right now.
Actually, that's in part due to actual factual, like, grassroots Democrat get out the vote campaigns, because that always is a double-edged sword, and the Democrats always just edge out. That was what happened here in Georgia. Yeah. This was the highest voter turnout for any election in Georgia history.
And they're doing everything
in their power to make sure that shit never happens.
And the Democrats just narrowly edged out Donald Trump in Georgia. Like, that's exactly what happened. And what's really awesome,
it was by like what, 2000? I remember following that for weeks after it happened. Just like watching those numbers just be incrementally a little bit higher. It was like, heart stopping, but God,
I love it. Somebody by the Saturday after the election, they were like, from the year that brought you 3 months of March, here comes Tuesday, part 7. Like,
I love the what was it? The Bill Murray, here we are on election day again.
Yeah, it was definitely like a fucking Punxsutawney Phil fucking kind of, I was just going to drive a car into an oncoming train at a certain point during lockdown.
Oh, man. No, but that Georgia flip blue, I got to tell you, like, I was pretty convinced. No,
it was so good. I was on group chat with some people that day. It's like, yes.
Yeah,
it was so wonderful.
And then I highly doubt that our governor and our attorney general are going to prosecute on this, but Trump's phone call to Brad Raffensperger, our Secretary of State, that was electioneering. That was 100% electioneering. Like, it was just bold-faced.
Trump is a criminal. Trump commits crimes like most people breathe, just constantly.
Praise Allah. The Republicans enforce the fact that Georgia is a one-party consent to record state. Like, Brad Raffensperger, 100% in the right to record Donald Trump, pressuring him to change election results after a recount, after a second recount, after a hand recount, a third recount, hand recount, and then after election certification by both the state legislature and coming up on the electoral college certification. Like,
what's going on with that new Arizona recount where they like took all of the ballots out to a shed somewhere and they're using like blue pens, which is illegal, to try and like change the votes, and it's called Cyber Ninja.
They fucked up the voting machines so bad. Arizona may have to buy new fucking voting machines.
Well, they also did this thing where nothing they do matters now because they broke the ballot chain of custody. Because there's a very specific law about, like, ballot goes here, ballot goes there, ballot goes. It's just like evidence in a
Well,
court
some of the
case.
stuff, some of the stuff that they were looking for was absolutely planet bananas. They were looking for, they said they were looking for bamboo fiber to prove that some of them had come, like, because China is just ate up with bamboo. It's just all over the place. You can't walk 5 feet without getting bamboo just covered in it.
They actually got their hands on extraordinarily expensive cameras, which they were using to try and find bamboo in the because it was like so like what do you call it? The resolution was so good on those cameras, like the 4K recording cameras, to make sure that there's no like bamboo fibers inside.
Right. They were mad because all the digital, I guess, ballots are like public record. But like they were mad because they were like, we need to see the actual ballots for, I guess, bamboo fiber and all the other fucking crazy shit. That's like one of the Capitol rioters right now. I don't know if you guys are following this. She's in court and they're about
a lot of those.
Well, she's about to have a competency hearing because she's declared that she is representing herself and that she is a sovereign citizen, and that the court has no jurisdiction over her and her vessel.
We talked about that in another episode.
And it was kind of like, then why are you in court? Like, then just leave.
Dude, I love those people. I really fucking
because the judge is like, look, if I let her represent herself and then later on she gets good counsel and she appeals on the grounds that I was crazy, Your Honor, and I had no business representing myself, you end up getting a new trial. He goes, but you can't force somebody to take counsel. So they're like, I guess we're gonna fucking have her evaluated to see if she's crazy or if she just believes dumb shit, and then we can let her represent herself.
Oh my God, dude.
Wonderful.
The sovereign citizen fucks, like, they are dangerous as hell.
Yeah.
Especially for police officers.
Yeah, I don't like cops.
They are deadly.
The only thing that I think the only people I think cops hate more than minorities is whenever someone starts the sovereign citizen spiel, watch the cops immediately back up and unstrap a gun, because those people.
We really just need to sit Republicans down one of these days and explain to them that blue lives matter.
Yeah, they kill a lot of cops. So I don't know if the enemy of my enemy is my friend or just let them kill each other. But like, I mean, I don't like the sovereign citizen people either. I think they're dumb as fuck.
It's just an Ouroboros at this point. It's just a snake eating its own tail. It's
yeah. Well, speaking of eating our own tail, do you guys want to hear about what Florida Man did? This was actually my favorite. All right, I feel like Florida Man stuff is a little bit overdone, but this one was just magic. So
definitely underdone.
So a Florida man was arrested after trying to throw an alligator on the roof to teach it a lesson. Now I'm just like, there's so many great ways. I'm like, is there something about alligators we don't know?
While screaming, "I got rights!"
Everyone knows that alligators hate roofs. That'll fucking learn him. Like,
what did the gator do to offend him so that he thought it needed to be taught a lesson?
Oh, let me tell you. A man from Florida has been arrested after he told police he wanted to teach an alligator a, quote, lesson by beating it and attempting to throw it on a rooftop.
Tempting. So he failed.
Yeah. So, well, I was also confused. I was like, did they just happen to cruise by and this dude's in his yard just like, get on up there? Like, it's hard to throw an alligator.
I wasn't sure like the size of the alligator. It could have been like Nixon.
If you see
gator,
if you see this if you see your neighbor doing this, do you call the police or do you just go back inside?
I would watch. I would just chill at the fence and be like, "Yep, as you were."
No, man, you've got rights. You let that alligator know.
So William,
I'm just waiting for him to throw the gator up there and then it slides straight back down, mouth first onto his head.
So William Hodge. Also, I'm like, was this guy Captain Hook? So William Hodge from Homestead.
Get the gator.
Hey, that was a crocodile. Thank you very much.
He was arrested on Thursday after he stole an alligator. So this gets better. He stole the alligator from a miniature golf course. He beat it, and then he tried throwing it on the roof of a beachside cocktail lounge.
Oh my God.
It wasn't his roof?
It wasn't his roof.
Also, why does a mini golf place have a real alligator, number one?
Florida is the answer. Florida is the answer. It's not that they have an alligator, it's that they built the mini golf place around the alligator.
Well, they never tell you what the alligator, like, did it fuck up his shot? Like, because people get frustrated at mini golf. But better than that is you're just sitting there having a cocktail. Maybe you just played a round of mini golf. You're talking with your friends. And here comes this dude dragging a fucking alligator up to the cocktail lounge and then begins to try to throw it on the roof.
It's like punching it.
What a lot of people don't understand is that Florida as a state is actually about 20% by volume just miniature golf courses.
Right.
Like there are an absurd number of
I could
miniature
see
golf
that.
courses in Florida. Yeah, it is.
That's why it's Trump's paradise. Oh, there's so much golf I can do here, and the
Look
tiny
how
little
big
clubs fit my
are, this
hands.
miniature golf course.
So it gets even better. It says Daytona Beach Shores police officer caught the 32-year-old when they saw him attempting to throw the alligator on the roof. The officer said in the report they saw Hodge beat the alligator against the wall of the building by swinging it by its tail and then threw the animal to the ground to stomp on it. The man told police he was teaching it a lesson. The man is still in jail on Friday, and he's facing charges of possession, which, of course, injury of an alligator, unarmed burglary of an occupied dwelling, theft, and criminal mischief.
Good.
Poor
Jesus
fucking
Christ.
poor
Yeah.
alligator.
Gator?
Slinging it by the tail. I'm going to teach you a lesson. I would have
I'll
just
teach
loved,
you a lesson, Gator. Whack.
I just want to know what the lesson was.
Me
They
too.
really,
What did
man,
it do?
because that would have been mine. I would have been like in the crowd, like, what did the gator do? Why are you
Right?
so angry?
What did it do to offend him? Like, what would be like the number one thing a gator could do to you that would offend you, Pete?
Probably fucked up his mini golf shot. Like,
Just like walked in front of it and just like, damn it, I was gonna get a hole in 20.
that dude was probably going to win a free golf game or some tchotchkes, and this fucking alligator fucked it up, and it has to learn.
So it's not his alligator. It was just a gator he decided to beat up.
No, it belonged to the mini golf people.
I thought they had like stole it, brought it all the way to his house, was like keeping it as a pet, and then just beat it up one day. That was my thought at the start of this story.
No, me too. But like, no, he stole. It gets better. He stole it from a mini golf place, went to
Just
a
to beat
cocktail
it up.
lounge, and just threw it against the wall and onto the roof while people are trying to drink their fucking daiquiris. And I like his answer to the cops, like
How drunk do you think the patrons of that place thought they were when they saw just a guy with a gator?
fucking, I just like Bobby, just the cops like, what are you doing?
I got rights.
I got rights.
I'm a sovereign citizen. You mind your business now. You're gonna be next. He then attempted to throw the officers on the roof as well.
Oh my god.
Yep.
All right, can I get into my news?
Yes.
Yes.
All
So
right,
you're speaking about
so-
public transit earlier, so segue from that into the plane.
Speaking of public transportation, 80-year-old woman finally gets to space. So this lady
Okay.
right here, Wally Funk. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe Bezos is going to space. I'm like, really? You can't believe that Bezos is going to space?
Bobby,
And
was
a lot
it
of
you
people
or
are like,
somebody
I hope
else?
he goes up there and dies. And I'm like, I really don't, because this is who he brought with him.
Well, somebody
Like,
brought up a point that Bezos
Oh.
is doing something that we have been doing since the 60s.
Yeah, only he did it on his private dime. And
Right.
someone else, it's like the only thing that I can credit Elon Musk with is that, or SpaceX with, is that they have not been the unmitigated comedy of disastrous errors that Blue Origin has been. Like, Blue Origin has had so many fucking setbacks.
What's
that-
Blue Origin?
Blue Origin is Bezos' space company. That's who
Okay.
just sent Jeff Bezos to space.
Okay.
But Elon Musk is accidentally very hands off with SpaceX. And it's to the point where, you know how they have like the big fucking rocket, big Falcon rocket, that they're trying to, like, we're going to be able to send 80 people to Mars in one go. I'm like, what are 80 people going to do on Mars? But it's like all this really hypothetical
They would
shit.
die.
Meanwhile, the Falcon rocket is really fucking solid and like a good business plan. I have a feeling, I have a hypothesis that SpaceX, in order to keep Elon Musk occupied, has created this idea of the Starship or the spaceship, which is, I think, what it's called, and that it's not actually a real thing that they're going for. It's just a shiny toy that they hand to Elon Musk anytime that he's getting like wordy in a board meeting. They're just like, no, Elon, we could totally have 30-minute rocket flights from one corner of the planet to the other on this spaceship we're trying to design to go to Mars. Like,
why
no,
not?
we could totally do that. That's smart. You should go. Listen, we're going to put you in this room where you can go and just play around with those and then have a press conference about it. It's fine. And then, okay. And then it gets back in and goes, everyone, okay, so we're definitely set on a 5-passenger rocket that can take people to the International Space Station. Okay, good. Let's crank that out. Anyway, but no. So Jeff Bezos, he brought an 18-year-old with him, which is really fucking suspect. I don't know how much time Jeff Bezos spent with what's his name, Jeffrey Epstein, but he brought an 18-year-old to space.
But he
with him.
did name the rocket the 18-year-olds in the Epstein. So, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, forget about the Lolita Express plane.
But anyway,
it's the Lolita rocket.
So this lady, Wally Funk, she was born in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and it's the thinking man's Las Vegas. But anyway, Wally Funk, she was born in 1939, which makes her roughly 82 years old this month. And she is currently the oldest person to have ever gone to space. Now, what makes her really fucking significant is that this lady is one of those trailblazers that they don't teach you about in high school because, you know, reasons. Anyway,
to be fair to high school, there's a lot of shit we have to cover, and kids don't remember most of it anyway.
She was part of. Oh yeah, that's like the people who were like, "Why didn't they teach me how to file taxes in high school?" I'm like, "You're the person who would have slept through that class."
What you can't do basic algebra. You think I'm going to teach you taxes?
And people talking about when they teach us how to write checks. I remember very well. Like, this stands out in my mind. It was 25, 30 years ago now. I remember doing like checks in high school. It was like a whole lesson dedicated to it. And this day we sat down and we had to write like 80 checks. It was annoying.
No, but so anyway, Wally Funk, she was part of the she was actually part of a private it was like, you know, private contractors worked on all of NASA's. Like, a lot of people are like, we're opening up space to private companies. Private companies have been a part of our space program from the word go. Yeah. So anyway, the Mercury 13, as they were dubbed in the 1980s, whenever a lot of this history was good, they were 13 astronauts who were female, who were prepared for the Mercury missions. But fun fact, NASA scientists, not thinking to look into it too much, were concerned about what menstruation would do in microgravity. So they just decided, we'll put off sending women to space for now. And so we didn't get a female astronaut until the 1980s with Sally Ride, who was also the first lesbian in space. Oh. Well, the first, you know, out lesbian in space. I'm not too sure about the Soviet female cosmonaut. But anyway, so
I almost said Laika. Wait, that was the dog.
She did apply for the Apollo program, but she was turned down on the basis of her gender. She then further applied for the space shuttle program to be like a mission specialist or something, and she was denied because of her age. Because at that point she was approaching 60. Anyway, so she has she's an American aviator. Honestly, we need like 7 or 8 high schools named after this lady once she dies. Yeah. She was the first female air safety investigator for the National Transportation and Safety Board. She was the first female civilian flight instructor at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and she was the first FAA inspector for the Federal Aviation Administration. And now she is the oldest person to have gone to space. She has shattered a 23-year record held by John Glenn to become the oldest human to ever travel to space.
I'm actually fine with sending more old people into space. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm fine with sending more billionaires to space, given that the space shuttle had like a 1 in 20 chance of blowing up and killing everyone.
Right.
I'm totally fine with all of I think that's, you know, that's what Elon's waiting for. He's waiting for the Cadillac to space. That's why he sent his car up there first. He's waiting. He's waiting for like the safety numbers to come down.
It is going to be fun when the billionaires get to Mars and then they realize their money doesn't matter, and also there's no way back. No.
That's Elon Musk is going to run Mars as a company town. I hope you know. That's why he wants to send 80 people a pop at a time, and that's part of the problem with excavating raw resources and building up industry on the moon. There's no labor to exploit it there.
Right.
You would have to bring all of the labor, and how, like, the moon. Yeah. If we continue this tract of corporate capitalism, especially neoliberal capitalism, mining the moon for resources is never going to happen because you don't have a disposable labor force ready to go up there.
Honestly, I think the best way to compare it would be to compare it to when they landed at Jamestown. They basically had a company charter. Everybody rolled up. Although Jamestown didn't plan out the labor, so they did not. They sent a bunch of people
we'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah, they sent a bunch of useless people because they didn't realize, like, oh, we need people that know how to do shit, and so they all rolled up, and then we're just like, we're all died. Like, they almost all died. Like, I think the Native Americans threw them some fish and was like, this is called corn. You plant this and eat this, because like they were not doing well at
No,
all.
I love it. There's a YouTuber. Let me find him real quick. Hang on.
While you're doing that, I was just gonna say, whenever Peter said we need to start sending more old people to space, I like to picture that being like back in the day when it was like really, really cold out there, blizzards, your whole family was dying from lack of food, and you're just like, let's send Grandpa out to hunt. He'll either come back with food or won't come back. We need to send old people out to space. They'll either come back with rare resources or they won't come back.
Yep.
There's a YouTuber called Paint. He does song medleys, and it's he has one song from like 8 years ago called Happily Ever After, a Disney parody, and it's basically like what happened to all the princesses, and it starts with like
They
the
went to
Disney
space.
theme, and he goes, did you ever wonder why Disney tales all end in lies? Here's what happened after all their dreams came true. And one of them is Pocahontas, and her chorus is, have you ever held the entrails of an English guy or bit the beating hearts of Spanish men? Have you shot an arrow in some French guy's eyeball? Can you paint with all the colors in these men?
Yep.
Like,
That's fantastic.
yeah, she can murder if she pleases because she's dying of diseases. Can you paint with the red colors in these men? I fucking love it. It's one of my favorite
Reminds me of
YouTube
that
parodies,
quote.
but it's really, it's a YouTuber named
So the question
What's
is,
the
when
name
they
of the that one guy that makes stuff where it's like he's a fat guy that walks into his own silhouette? He's like, "Good evening." What's his name?
drive me crazy,
Alfred
I can't
Hitchcock.
think. Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock. There's an Alfred Hitchcock quote that goes, "If you want a happy ending to your story, that'll depend entirely on when you end it."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
wonder.
So
So
anyway,
when
that's this lady, Wally Funk. She's fucking amazing.
She got a
She's an
cool ass
American
name.
hero. She should, while they're up in space, punch Bezos in the throat or try to cause some internal bleeding, because you can't treat internal bleeding in microgravity.
Space.
Yeah.
Oh,
You bleed in instead of bleeding out. You bleed in because there's no way to stop internal bleeding. Wally, if you're watching, please
That
kill
would've been
Jeff
nice.
Bezos while you're in orbit. I don't know when this is going out, but yeah.
That would have been great. No, but I wonder if they land, they land people on Mars, they like send 80 people, they're gonna do a company town. Do you think the planning is they're gonna have the right people to establish like a place on Mars? Do you think it's gonna be an unmitigated disaster because they didn't know what they were doing?
Unmitigated
first and foremost,
disaster.
you're going to be hard pressed to find people willing to go to Mars and die.
Right.
That's
Because
first
it's a one-way trip, and
You're
like
going to have to, because what Elon Musk wants is he wants 1 million people living and working and dying on Mars by like 2050, which is an absolutely insane goal.
I feel like
which
the only
is
way
why
you'd
I
be able to
think
do it
that
would be to
SpaceX
take.
has given him spaceship to just be like, look at this shiny thing. You go figure out what to do
I mean,
with it. in that other
maybe
room
if
and
you
pull
did
rest.
the Alien 3 model where you sent prisoners on a one-way trip, with the idea
Oh,
of
and found it like you found it Australia or
yeah,
Florida.
you could stay in jail.
or Georgia,
or
or South Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
No, Georgia was a debtor's prison too. They were like, all these
yeah.
debtors can't pay off their debts by being eaten to death by rats in English prisons. Why don't we send them to the hot ass colony of Georgia, where they'll
Which was basically all swamps.
Yeah, they'll die of swamp diseases while they pay back their debts.
I mean, let's be honest. Savannah's still very swampy.
It's still a swamp.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that happen in the year 2050, I have something from the year 2030, which may encourage us to get to space quicker in Pat Science Corner for this week.
What's going on in Pat's Science Corner, which used to be Pete's Science Corner, which I assume one day will become Bobby's Science Corner.
Oh, it could be Bobby's Science Corner. Stay tuned for that next week, maybe.
all is Bobby all the
by
time.
2030, we will have a Bobby Science Corner.
And then by 2040, we'll be talking about everything in the past was terrible, talking about the god-awful 2030s, which apparently, and I just found this out recently, there's going to be a moon warble during those 10 years.
Yeah, the moon warble. Hooray.
Why is it warbling?
The moon's just going to be a bit, because it feels like apparently it does that sometimes. It just destabilizes.
It's orbital mechanics. And like I've said before, like the interior of the moon is likely still molten. It probably doesn't have an iron core, but it's probably still molten. And we've left seismographs on the moon. And every once in a while, like, you know how the moon tugs on the Earth and it creates the tides and it kind of like fucks with our orbit a little bit and keeps us from wobbling too much. Well, we do the Earth does the same thing to the moon. And so like there are moonquakes. Like it's up there. Some days the moon is ringing like a bell.
Well, the moon reminds me of my previous relationship,
all the
where
like media, all like movie depictions and stuff like that of like, you know, the lunar lander site. Oh, it's perfectly preserved, and you can still see you probably can't still see the footprints. They've probably all been filled in by moonquakes at this point. But and the flags are probably white at this point as well.
Solar radiation,
bleach from the sun.
Yeah. But
no, the moon's orbit reminds me of my last relationship. Like the moon is constantly trying to get away from us, and as soon as it almost gets there, our gravity like pulls it back in for another round.
It actually is slowly moving away from us at about 4 inches a year.
I mean, that's how I was in my last relationship. I'm like, if I can just move 4 inches away from this asshole, I will be free one day.
One day our moon really will just yeet off into space and we'll never see it again.
Hopefully Bezos is on
it'll come back, or it'll come back and hit us, which is how we think that
it'll be stuck in the same orbit as we are, and then we'll just like loop around and smash.
Yeah, because we do have gravity wells out in front of and behind our orbit around the sun, because the moon won't just yeet off into deep space, it'll yeet off into solar orbit. And then it'll be a very close solar orbiting object, and a very large one. And it'll probably have a couple of attempts before it yeets off into solar orbit, where we kind of like leave it behind for a little while.
Again, that's what happened in my relationship. It took a couple tries for I yeeted out of that thing.
Because it all depends on if the moon leaves towards the sun or leaves towards like Jupiter, you know, one of the large gravitational anchors,
or if the moon,
system, whether or not it'll be an inside track or an outside track, and whether or not we catch up to it because we lap it, or it catches up to us because it laps us. But that'll take a long
or
time.
if the moon finally recognizes its own value and realizes it's just fine on its own.
Exactly. Yeah,
we've technically hit it before too. Like, because originally it was just a rogue planet or another planet in the orbit that smashed into us. And then
is that it was a roughly Mars-sized planetoid that was stuck in Earth's forward gravity well. So like as we go around the sun, we have points of equidistance basically. Jupiter has a lot of these. They're called Trojan asteroids. And Earth actually has one. We have an extra moon that nobody talks about because it's temporary. It's probably going to leave us in about 1,000 years.
It does this number, right? It's like a yo-yo.
It's kind of orbiting. So here's the Earth going around the sun. We're pushing it ahead of us, basically. We're pushing it as we move through our solar procession. And
terrifying.
Theia, the object that we've named, because of course we've named it, that caused the moon likely fell out of this Trojan orbit of the Earth, grazed the planet, was obliterated by orbital forces, by gravitational and orbit. It reached its what's called LaRoche limit, and it just basically shattered. And that's what we also think caused the rings of Saturn and Jupiter were moons approaching their LaRoche limit and just shredding. And then all the pieces just sort of ground against each other. And for a while there, the Earth likely had a ring, and the moon, once it formed, likely had an atmosphere, like a very, very thick atmosphere at that, because of the outgassing from volcanism, which is the same reason why Earth and Venus have atmospheres, and likely Mars. Yay!
Yay!
Hooray!
Anyway, so the Warble's going to flood us? How's that going to happen?
So the same way the moon causes our tidal forces now, when it begins to warble, it'll still do that, but like different tidal forces, and it'll be just slightly different enough that it's going to flood all the coastal cities. So the GOP's finally going to get their wishes then. You know, always bitching about the coastal elites. Ain't going to be any anymore. All the coastal cities are going to flood. Probably get obliterated.
Well, you know, every time scientists say something's going to happen, I hate that they keep trying to do like most optimistic estimate, because they keep coming back and going, hey guys, remember when we said that like this could be a problem in the next 200 years? Turns out 2030. So if they're saying 2030, I'm like, maybe 2025, 2023.
It's so whenever you say conservative estimate, I also picture like the degree of damage it's going to cause is probably also being understated. So
because they're like
I'm flashing back to pre-2012. There was this map of the United States just like badly flooded, that they're saying the psychics are saying that this is going to be America in the future after the devastation of 2012 comes and the Mayans predictions come to pass. And that's basically what I'm thinking about while this is happening here, because I also heard another prediction say, it's actually going to be 2034 or something like that. They misread the Mayan calendar. Now, I mean, of course, if people say every year is the last year, eventually someone's going to be right. But credit to the psychics on this one.
I was at the Natural History Museum.
It's just I've just been thinking about that lately, because that's probably what the map's going to look like largely with all the flooding coming in.
I took a science class there, and they were talking about, they showed through fossil records the last time the Earth had this amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and they showed us what the basically
you had another science fact.
Yeah, they showed us a map of the United States, basically what the oceans look like. And like, I couldn't, until I took this class, I didn't understand why the ocean level rises when the Earth gets hotter, and it's because thermal expansion. When water is hot, it expands. So with the amount of CO2 that was in the air last time on the fossil record, they showed New York, and there was a little tiny strip of the island of Manhattan that was still above water. Most of Brooklyn gone, like huge, just basically anything coastal, and that was the amount of CO2 we have in the air right now. That's what the water level was last time. So
I just caught the silver lining to this dark cloud. This is amazing. We are about to obliterate the fucking GOP from ever getting elected again, because what is fucking us right now? All these states out in the middle that are all bright red because the smart people are all on the coast. As soon as the coast floods, all the blue's going to come inland and spread over America, and then the votes will be more in the Democrats' favor.
That's already happening with this sort of exodus from California. A lot of people are leaving California for states like Wyoming and Nevada, and a lot of the GOP are going, see, this is why California sucks. It's because of the Democrats, and all these people are leaving. I'm like, you realize that it's also Democrats leaving California for these red states, right? Like, you realize what that's going to do in the elections.
It's going to fuck up their fucking gerrymandered maps.
Well, at a certain point, like the GOP's only talking point is going to be because like it's all going to be underwater.
Well, if there were a conservative,
because Fox News is located in New York, ironically,
I would consider conservative talking points if there were any coherent ones.
Right.
Like I would consider them. Like
in a sane world, in the non-darkest timeline, I might be slightly conservative.
Am I the only one that's always found it weird that Fox News was in New York and CNN was in Georgia? Like, that seems backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does. But when you realize that everybody's playing a part, no one actually cares about what they're saying. For the most part.
I feel like some people care. Like, I feel like Tucker Carlson actually cares about the things he's saying. He probably knows he's lying and knows he's playing a bit role, but like, he cares. And also, like, Don Lemon probably cares. He seems to actually get passionate about what's going on. Wolf Blitzer, it would not surprise me to learn that he doesn't give a fuck, because he's always like so deadpan when he's talking.
Isn't it Wolf Blitzer?
And this is the missing Malaysian airliner.
Isn't it Wolf Blitzer that got his start? Like, if you see him in your town, you know that it's about to be obliterated by a natural disaster. Was that early Wolf Blitzer, or was that a different guy?
I feel like that's Anderson Cooper.
Or it might have been
He's
Anderson
the one that
Cooper.
always goes to towns that are about to flood, right?
I can't remember if it was him or Anderson Cooper. Whichever one was just like the prophet of doom. Like, if you saw him outside your house, you should get in your car with your family and leave.
No. That's the Weather Channel's Jim Cantori. If Jim Cantori shows up in your neighborhood, things are about to go down. Yeah, that's Jim Cantori. He is a legend. He is a legendary cryptid of the state of Louisiana.
Amazing.
Mom, Jim Cantori's on the line. Fucking go. Fucking get your boat.
Pack your bags. We gotta go.
Speaking of boats, we talked briefly about this, but I wanted to talk about this on the podcast. This right. A lot of people talk about how you should raise your kids. And I don't know.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
I saw a great meme the other day, and that's why it brought me back to this news story. It said baby boomers, and they're like, we beat our kids and they're just fine. And it says baby boomers kids, and it showed Buffalo Bill like doing the whole like, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. Like, I go, you know what? They bring up a good point. Nobody's ever turned into a
transphobic, but it is a good point. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was because he was trans. I think it was because like he was a serial killer dealing with his trans issues not well. Like he wasn't adapting well to being trans. He was murdering women and wearing their skin.
But they also state explicitly in the movie that he was turned down for transition by like all of the doctors who do it. Yeah, and that he's explicitly state that he is not, as the 80s terminology went, transsexual, which is now an outdated term both socially and academically.
Okay, because I wasn't trying to attack trans people.
No. Yeah.
I just meant this serial killer aspect. Like boomers are like, we were fine. Fucking photos of like Dennis Rader and fucking Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
So
I go with like Leatherface. That's a good neutral.
Turned out fine, and then here's a picture of Gen X. Yeah. Like it's
and so like the idea is
that I'm the child of boomers. I am the youngest of 4 by 16 years because I'm the only child of the second marriage. Yeah.
And so I realized nobody has ever been turned into a serial killer by being coddled and loved too much. Like no one's like, man, my parents were super supportive of my dreams.
Well, I mean, Munchausen by proxy syndrome does exist, and there was that lady who killed her mother for brainwashing her into believing she had cancer.
To be fair, though, I wouldn't call that supportive.
I was about to say,
I just mean nobody's become a worse person by not being viscerally beaten by their parents.
Joffrey, Donald Trump. I guarantee you, Trump wasn't beaten.
Well, Trump was not beaten, but
he was psychologically tortured.
He was also neglected.
Yeah.
True.
Like
there's
his dad,
evidence that Fred Trump was just the biggest piece of shit.
Yeah, his mom and dad like didn't love him. You know what I mean? Like he was rich, but they weren't like, good job, Donnie. Good job. You know what I mean? Like that never came out.
Daddy, love me, please. Yeah.
So my point is,
I'm president. Do you love me now?
Being a nice parent and like doing well for your kids has never produced.
We outdid the Romneys, Daddy. We outdid them.
Yeah. So these parents are definitely what I would call like Chinese boomers. Parents tried to tame rebellious daughter by dumping her on a deserted island.
I saw that. They left her with a survival expert.
She was 13. So they're like,
whatever that means.
So they're like, this daughter is rebellious. We're going to put her on a deserted island with a strange man she doesn't know to teach her a lesson. So what's even more?
That's the same thing that American parents do, but they call it like a tough love camp.
Oh, dude, those are
all the abuses that come out with that.
Those are so bad. Like so many kids die in those.
Yeah. Especially the tough love pray away the gay camps that are just mysteriously in third world countries where corrupt governments can be bribed into turning a blind eye to. We are literally causing kids to commit suicide at this camp.
I mean, I feel like suicide is a better option because there are other kids that just die of horrible things like dehydration, malnutrition, beatings, like
horse.
I think that
they were forced to death.
If Peter was taken and dropped on a deserted island when he was 13, I feel like that would be Disneyland to him. Like he would be loving your life back then, right?
So there was a time my dad kind of did this, and I there's another timeline where he realized like the announcer would have paused and gone like, that's where James fucked up. I told my dad when I was like, I must have been like 7 or something like that. I was like, I want to run away. And he goes, fine, after church, I will take you out to a deserted place and let you run away. So went through it after church. He's like, do you still want to run away? I went, yeah, I want to run away. And so it was me and him, drives the car down this country ass road in the middle of nowhere. And he like reaches over and opens the passenger side door. And he goes, all right, you're free to go. Just know one thing, that if you're going to run away, you can't have any of this stuff we bought you. So you got to leave your clothes and stuff here.
Do it.
So I thought about it and I was like, nah, and like we went home, but I go, what if I called his bluff and I just stripped down and fucking took off naked across a field? Now this guy has to get out of his car and chase a naked child through the woods.
Yeah.
There's
Imagine if you had sprinted back out onto the main road and people driving by just saw like a naked boy running and like an old man like lumbering after him.
Yeah. No, that was, and you imagine his mind if I had gone and he's just gone, fuck, son of a bitch.
Oh man,
because it was a close thing in my little 7-year-old brain. I was like, maybe, I don't know. I didn't like being naked was my only problem. If I had been a little more comfortable being like one of those, there are like the 7-year-olds that just love being naked. Like if I had been one of those, man, I'd have been gone. He'd have never caught me because I was hot. I'd have been sweaty and greased up. Yeah, I'd been like trying to tackle a bar of soap.
Amazing. So that would have been just like the best story ever for him to have to tell people later.
Can you imagine if he couldn't catch me? Then he's gonna call the police and tell mom. Like,
oh my god, that'd be even better.
You know,
I bet that you were in better shape than him back then too, right?
Yeah.
So you probably could have gotten away.
He definitely had like middle-aged dad bod, and I had like 7-year-old. Like all I do all day is climb trees and fall off shit. So like I was like an animal. They're like, can you basically call the cops? They're like, hey,
so I told my son to get naked and run through the woods, and he did.
Because the questions would probably be like, why are his clothes on the front seat? Like, what exactly? They're gonna think he murdered me. He's gonna go to jail. They're gonna go, where's the body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to catch him, but he was just so greasy.
So the island, they would have come back to be like, did you learn your lesson? Wait, where is he? Like, and then
like
someone
a shirt swinging on a branch somewhere.
Someone just gets an arrow or a blow dart in them, and they're like, we made a huge mistake. He's gone feral.
Yeah, but no, but the story in China, like I was reading about that, and like the authorities just brought her back to her parents.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, it's in China, but like in America, CPS would be called. Like they would take one look, like the cops would take one look at this survival expert and go, that's a child predator. CPS, hello?
Yeah.
Yes, we have an abandoned child on this alluvial island in the Savannah River.
And it was weird because the parents were like, we don't want to take her back yet. And they're like, the government's like, you have to. You can't continue to leave her on the island. I'm trying to find in the article when they said what she did, but it was something very teenager. Like she stays in her room all day and dropped out of school. You know what I mean? Like it was something very like, yeah, we've all been like 16.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I don't understand what the lesson they were trying to teach her was.
It's all about tough love, baby. Chinese parents, tough love.
Chinese parents have a lot in common with Florida man, right? Like, I'm surprised they didn't take the kid, bash her against the wall, and like throw her on the roof.
Her parents tried to punish her by throwing an alligator through her window into her room.
well, okay. So speaking of terrible Chinese parents, let me get to all of the past was terrible, but this time it has a twist. In that the recent past was worse than the distant past. The recent past is trying to make the distant past seem a lot worse. Anyway, so the first and only ever empress of China, Wu Zetian. Now, a lot of people who know about Wu Zetian know about her through Chinese biographers from like the 1800s. She ruled China like on her own for only about 30 years, but she was effectively in control of the country from, let me see here, 690 to 705 AD. And basically how the story is usually told is that she was a low-level concubine, which being a low-level concubine doesn't mean a lot of what you think of whenever the word concubine is said. Like a low-level concubine for the emperor was basically, she was a woman of noble blood who couldn't be married off. And so her parents gave her to the emperor in exchange for something. And she was like a maid, essentially. They think she met the current emperor that she was given to for, like, she met him while she was changing bed sheets or something. And anyway, she became the de facto ruler of the Tang dynasty by more or less murdering her way to the top. So whenever the original emperor died, it's usually with all of that emperor's concubines and harem, it's sort of like off to the nunnery with you, unless one of his sons really likes you, then you get to stay on. And that's what happened with her. She married the 9th son of the emperor that she had originally been in the harem of. And eventually he died, and one of his brother's sons then also mysteriously died, and then another one mysteriously died, and then another one sort of died of natural causes, but we don't have really good. And anyway, so it works it all the way down to her son is now top of the pile, but oh no, he accidentally dies. Then the wife of one of the former emperors also had a son, and then he died under mysterious circumstances, and just all of a suddenly the court blames that mother and not Wu Zetian. And anyway, so Wu Zetian eventually comes to power, and there's all this written about her, and she was evil and she was wicked. Modern historians, okay, modern historians are going, a lot of these deaths can be attributed to the fact that it was the first millennium and people just died. Even rich people just sort of died of, oh no, I got a splinter. Well, it was nice knowing all of you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's that sort of stuff. And she probably did not cause as much death as her contemporary and then later historians would claim, and that a lot of the ill will and guile towards her was likely a bunch of men who don't have nut sacks sitting around in a room, like literally did not have nut sacks. Like these are the eunuchs writing history going, oh, that one time we had a female emperor, it was a bad idea. She was terrible. She went on her period and she murdered everybody. And that's all that women are good for, is if you put them in power, they'll murder everyone. Well, anyway, she is
said
literally
about Hillary for a long time. That sentiment doesn't really go away, does it?
According to modern historians, China became great because of her. Like, she was the effective administrator that they needed. And a lot of the reason why the historians and nobility of the time and then afterwards didn't like her was because, oh, you stole from the royal treasury. Well, my husband and also my former employer look the other way. I'm not going to. That's a death sentence. You're going to die. Like, those are deaths that we can attribute to her because she sentenced people to death for things like, not being an effective bureaucrat, for squandering half of the wealth of this province. Like, well, anyway, some deaths that we can attribute to her, though, is that whenever she did die, all of her servants and most of her children were asked to commit suicide so they could be buried alongside her. We know that happened for a fact, but that was just the normal thing that did with that the Chinese people did with emperors and empresses back in the day. Was, oh yeah, like India also has a lot of this. Like, if your husband has died, you're expected to throw yourself.
Didn't Egypt do that a lot?
Oh, Egypt, yeah, Egypt
They're
definitely
famous
did
for
it.
that.
But that was mostly so that the wife can't do exactly what Wu Zetian did, which is, start consolidating power immediately. And Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great did the same thing. She, I don't know if I've ever told you guys the story about how Catherine the Great's husband died. Anyway, so she cooed. She did some cooage, and a very, very December 6th style cooage as well. Like, the palace guards were in on the coup. And her husband gave up, and she put him in a prison off the coast of St. Petersburg in the Baltic, or whatever that little gulf is. And then she, with explicit instructions of, guys, don't kill him. Don't let him die. Don't kill him. And then about a week later, he was dead. And they had to send out, of course, to all the different courts of Europe and Central Asia, like, the emperor is dead, long live Empress Catherine. And in it, they claimed that he died due to complications of hemorrhoids. And there's this very funny dispatch from a French diplomat to the British Crown at the time, like a member of the British court, basically, because the French and the British, they can't get it. It's a love-hate relationship. They're frenemies.
Right.
He wrote back to his wife in Paris, or rather at Versailles, and said, "Well, I shall be informing the consulate general that I will not ever be requesting a posting in Russia, for I have hemorrhoids, and there it is fatal." But yeah, everyone knew that Catherine the Great probably had her husband killed. This woman, Wu Zetian, yeah, she probably killed her husband, but a lot of the death that's attributed to her, if it wasn't an explicit, like, especially the child death, because she's blamed for a lot of infanticide, like almost a genocidal amount of infanticide.
Look how high the infant mortality rates were. Yeah. Like, even
she's
if you
probably also still a better ruler of China than Winnie the Pooh. So
Xi Jinping is pretty fucking savvy. I'm not gonna lie. Xi Jinping, that's a smart cookie. He knows his shit, man. Like, yeah.
So he is not a silly old bear.
He's not a silly old bear.
if you look at like English history, just how often, like, number one, trying to keep up with people that keep taking the same titles. I'm like, guys, you got to do like Rocky and put some Roman numerals after Duke of Cumberland, because there's been like 50 Dukes of Cumberland. But yeah, like, if they didn't die in battle, or like, you know what I mean? Like, there was one, I can't remember which English king it was. They loved him. He was very effective, but he was also very manly and played sports and swam every day and was the paradigm of health. And then he got sick and fucking died, just like that. Richard the Lionheart took an arrow to the knee, right? Shouldn't be a big deal.
Also, Richard the Lionheart, like the British people fucking love Richard the Lionheart. He did not love them. Like he was all about getting back to Aquitaine. Like he did not give two flying shits about England.
Well, no one cared.
Like for his entire reign was like 30 years. He was in England for like 15 minutes.
Well, no one really cared. No one really cared about England because remember they had parts of France. Like so, everybody like the real stuff was the land that they owned in Europe. That's now France. And then, of course, John Lackland was such a shitty king. He lost all the overseas land. And they're like, well, guess we're an island nation now. Like that's what happened. And the people that were still in France, they were like, you want to be on a shitty island or you want to be in French? What do you want to do? Because you better make a fucking decision pretty quick. You got to go one way or the other. So do we want to get to the Dear Wesley?
Yes.
All right. This one is interesting and also a little bit infuriating because this person
Sorry. You guys go on. I'll be right back. Sorry.
This person buries the lead. So this one says, Dear Wesley, am I the asshole for telling my mother-in-law I don't care about her sob story and that she needs to move on and shut up? So normally I'm kind of on the side of the poster because generally mother-in-laws on these Dear Wesleys are terrible. You know what I mean? Like mother-in-laws on these things are kind of like Disney,
the worst.
Yeah, Disney witches. You know what I mean? Where you're like, she's gonna steal a baby, isn't she? Like that's what it is. So
the wicked stepmother.
So Dear Wesley, mother-in-law and I used to get along all right. She used to babysit my daughter one day a week to help with the cost.
This is the mother-in-law.
Yes, to help with the cost of childcare. I had cameras set up in the house because honestly, my daughter's safety is the most important thing to me. This was not specific to mother-in-law, but my stepmom babysat occasionally as well. As a teenager, I paid. So I used to check it fairly often. And one time mother-in-law did something I didn't like. It wasn't anything terrible, just we have different styles. And I asked her not to do that again. So obviously she found out about the camera. Oh, I'll get to that. She found out about the cameras. Mother-in-law flipped the fuck out. Now I know why, because her husband, my father-in-law, didn't allow her to eat much, just grilled chicken and lettuce. And when she came to my house, she would eat junk food. And that's 100% fine. I would have never outed her. And apparently she has issues because her husband is always humiliating her. He said he paid for a trophy wife and that she was going to look like one. So mother-in-law screamed at me.
Wait, so I was picturing like an old crone here. I guess she's just like hot.
So she says later on in the post, and she hides it because she knows she's an asshole. The thing the mother-in-law did that she saw on camera and confronted her about was her mother-in-law was like holding the baby threw up all over mother-in-law's shirt. Mother-in-law sets baby down, takes shirt, and I guess puts it in the sink or the wash or whatever, and then comes back and plays with the baby while still wearing a bra and nothing else. You know, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But apparently she saw it on camera and was like, hey, I don't want you to do that again. And the lady's like, you have fucking cameras in here that you didn't tell me about? And she's like, yeah, my baby's safety is important. So like, you know, not to cut it short, but it goes on basically like her and the mother-in-law now don't get along. The mother-in-law makes snide comments about like, you know, her being a perv and filming her and stuff. And so finally one day she just snapped on her at a family gathering and was like, you know, shut up and I don't give a shit about your sob story, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, am I the asshole? And I was like, you fucking put cameras up and then invited somebody to your house and didn't go, hey, just so you know, there's nanny cams around.
Yeah.
And then like they ask her in the comments are like, did you apologize? And she's like, no. I'm like, so you filmed a woman in a vulnerable place with no top on. She's also in an abusive relationship. And
then extremely abusive. Apparently she was sold to her current husband.
And then you doubled down on it. Like you didn't go, I'm very sorry about that. I should have told you there's a nanny cam. You're just like, stop your sob story.
What was her sob story?
The sob story was basically the way her husband treats her and stuff like, you know what I mean? Like
that's a story that I'd be willing to hear. Like that's an awful thing that's happening to her apparently.
But yeah, so the poster's like, am I the asshole? It's like, unequivocally you are. And you also didn't mention the shirt thing. And someone asked in the comments, they were like, hey, does she ever wear a bikini around your kid? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, then what the fuck? The only difference between that and a bra is the material.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, if it's a kid that's small enough to not be able to, like, to be being held and throwing up, like, that kid is going to have no memory
Yeah, that too.
Grandma held me with a bra.
Also,
Like,
why are you sexualizing this kid's grandma? Like the little baby's like, titties, yeah. Like that's also
little
weird.
kids should be like, yeah, titties, yeah, because it's fucking food.
Yeah, like it's like people that like sexualize very
So
young
it would be
children.
all those words, just like without the sexual connotation behind it.
Yeah,
Titties, yeah.
but like it's just weird.
Like fried chicken.
I don't know. I get sexual about food sometimes, you guys.
I mean,
Oh, marinate it, baby.
I mean, would you be horrified if you were 3 years old and your grandma walked by in a bra? Like you don't have any memory of that.
If I was 3, I do have some memories of when I was 3, not many. Very, very
I have
few.
mememories from when I was 3. I was in a walker and I brought louverdors, like they like slide open and stuff. So I was in a walker and I came around a corner too fast and I pulled a louverdor off its track and onto the back of my sister's head.
Nice.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, she was really upset with me, but I didn't
I'd
understand what
imagine.
was going on.
I remember being old enough. My sister's 2. I must have been like 2 going on 3. My sister's like 2 years younger than me. I do remember asking my mom questions about like my sister. She must have been really pregnant and like about babies and stuff. Because I remember very specifically, mom's like, like babies come out of a special hole in a woman. And I remember going, "Can I see it?" And she was like, "No." And that's like one of those ones where my brain was like, "Oh, we should file this later. So when he's 36, it'll be like a weird shame memory of him asking to see his mother's vagina. File that in embarrassing file cabinet number 1." Like the alpha embarrassing memory of like, keep that always, brain.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
on that embarrassing memory, guys, I gotta go.
Oh, real quick, what would
Gotcha.
what would Wesley do?
What would
Yeah.
Wesley do? Well, can I see the video then?
Oh, that's it. All right, guys. That's the end of our podcast. Have one. The socials. Listen to the last episode because we got to go.
Yep. Have a good night. Bye, Decibel 3. It'll be out
Like,
soon,
and
right,
comment
Pete?
on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Later.